Okay. So can you all see my screen? Okay. The other day on last Thursday, when we discussed about the Selenium, we discussed like how do we do a setup of the PyCharm, how do we install the Selenium WebDriver packages inside uh, the PyCharm. Then we saw how do we export the code from Selenium IDE into a Python code, and how can we set the the code in Python in the PyCharm, and how can we run it. So we saw all these things in the last week's class, and I have told you that you should create a similar code in for RNCRM. So how many of you have done that? How many of you have done the code in RNCRM? Has anybody created the Selenium code in Orange CRM? So I've showed you, right? I've shared you a link of Orange CRM, and I've asked you to create a script on the Orange CRM. How many of you have done that? Okay. Good to see nobody has done it, which basically explains the kind of seriousness you have. Okay. Fine. That doesn't stop me from proceeding whatever we are going to cover today. So today we will look at the scripting concepts in Python. Right? So what we will do is, so we have basically created a code. Let us go ahead and observe the code. So if you look at the code here, we are using the WebDriver, and there is something called as so if you look at this, right, you can see that there is a method. I mean, it is all under a class called test case one, and under that there is a definition. This is a method. Okay, in Python we write a method like this. Okay, so this method takes two parameters, right? One is the self. This is basically a constructor to the class itself, and the method. So we saw how can we run the code on multiple browsers. In my machine, I have only Chrome and Edge. So we, by changing the browser name, we can do that, right? So if you look at this, every test case, every test case will have three important things. One is a setup method. One is a setup method, which basically brings up the WebDriver or basically brings up the browser. Then there is the actual test class. There is the actual test class. And then you have a method called tear down. What is the purpose of tear down is after the test case execution is over, you basically come out of the WebDriver execution. So these three are by default, any code that you take will have these three particular methods. Now, see, the point is when we are recording the code, there are so many things that we will have to do as a part of the recording mechanism. Now, when we are doing the Selenium recording, we add something called as assertions. Okay, so what are assertions? Assertions are nothing but a way of executing the test cases in such a way that the test cases pass or fail. So in order to make the see, when you're writing a manual test case, right, you have written the manual test cases. Can you tell me what are all the fields that are present in a manual test case? When you're writing a manual test case, what are all the fields that are present? What are all the fields that are present when you write a manual test case? So when you are writing a manual test cases, what are all the fields that are present? Writing a manual test case, What are all the fields present in a test case? The test case, what are all the fields that are present? You would have written test cases, right? You have something called as the test case ID. Then you have something called as prerequisite. Then you have something called as test steps. Then you have something called as expected result. Then you have actual result. And then you compare actual result and expected result. So here, when we are creating the test case here, we also have the same things. For example, the setup method is like the prerequisite. So whatever is required for executing the test cases, we will write it in the setup method. This is like your this is like your test case ID, and these are your test steps. These are your test steps. Now, one thing that is missing is the expected result. Now, the assertions, okay, assertions are a way of specifying the expected result in the code. Assertions are a way of specifying the expected results in the code. So there are two things here. There is something called assertion and there is something called as verification. Now let us see the difference between both of them. Okay. First, let me create another new test case. Let me call this test case as new Python file. And let me call this as PC underscore TC2, test case 2. Okay. So I've created a new test case. Let us go ahead and create a test script for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, let us use this display to create this test case. So what I'm going to do is, let us open the Selenium first. Don't I have Selenium here? Okay, let me just go install Selenium IDE for Pro. I thought I had, but I don't. Oh, it is there. Selenium IDE is there. Here. Okay, now I have loaded the Selenium IDE. Now, in the Selenium IDE, I'm going to record the test case now. So let me create a new project. Let me call it as test. I'm going to give the base URL. Then I'm going to start record. So first I opened it. Now I'm going to say admin. Admin. Now I'm going to say login. So the moment I log in, how do I ensure that the login was successful? Right? So I need to write a small code which will say whether I have logged in. So if this table is there, okay, if this table is there, that means I have logged in successfully. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a assertion for this test case. I'm going to create a assertion for this table, or maybe I can also check whether this link is there, or I can check whether the text lookup is there. Anything I can do. Okay. So right now, what I'm doing is I'm right click. Okay. Here you will get the Selenium IDE, and here you will get the assert. Here you will get the assert. So I'm going to say present. Okay, I'm going to say present. Now the test case, that assertion will be added. So now let's say I'm going to the tax code. When I click on this tax code, this add tax code text should be there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select this text, right click, Selenium IDE, assert, and then I'm say assert text. Assert text, right? So I'm now going to the main page. Now, once I come back to the main page, this logout link should be present. So I'm going to say right click, Selenium IDE, assert, present. So what I have done is while I'm recording, right, I have created several assertions. Let me stop it. See here, you can see now after I clicked on this password, I'm checking whether this element is present. Then I'm checking. Again, here, if you look at this, assert text, add tax code. Is that present? Here I am saying, sorry. Okay. After I click on the link text code, I want to click this. Then I want to click on some link. And then I want to verify whether I've got assert element. This is the logout link, right? So now we have created this. Now let us go ahead and say export. Let's say I'm going to export it as a Python code. So now just opening the code here, right? So now I just copy paste this. Now I'm going to put this here. Now if you look at this, okay, here you have these assertions coming up. So it says first it gets that element, okay, and then it checks whether that element is present. Okay. Then here it says assert text. Assert. So here it says assert self, whether this text is there or not. Again. So now let us go and run this. Okay, and see what happens. I click. One minute. Okay, now the screen is shared. Okay, so now let us go and run this. Right click, run as. Okay, now it will start at the test cases. So I'm running it on Chrome. So now it says all passed because all the test cases have passed. Now here, what I'm going to do, let us say instead of add tax code, okay, I am giving a small space. I'm giving a small space. That means the text is changed. Okay, now the text is changed. Let's see what happens. Right click, run. Here, see here. It says the assertion failed. Okay, now it says the assertion has failed. Why it is failed? See here it is saying add a tax code not equal to add a tax code. There is a difference. There is a difference. That is why it failed. There is a difference. That is why it failed. Now instead of assert, okay, in Selenium, let me say here instead of assert, I'm going to say verify. Instead of assert, I'm going to say verify text. Now I'm going to export this. Here, I used an assert, but it says verify. Wait. Here, it is assert text. Okay. But I tried to use it as a verify. Let me just check what is happening. Okay, so I tried putting a assert, verify, but in the code, when it is exporting, it is coming as assert only. Okay. Now, but there is a difference between assert and verify. Okay. There is a difference between assert and verify. Now, let us see the difference from the Selenium IDE here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, instead of verify, assert text. Right? Now, 1 minute. Just a second. Ma'am, class முடிச்சிருக்கோம். 20 minutes. Hello? Hello, ma'am, class முடிச்சிருக்கோம். Sorry. So here, now, so okay. So first, let us try to understand the difference between assert and verify. Okay. So here, the point I'm trying to make here is, go to this one. Here, for right now, we are having the assert text. Okay. So now I'm running the test case. See what is happening. It logs in. Now it goes through the all steps are done, right? Now here what I'm going to do is, this place I'm going to say add tax code. I'm just changing it slightly. Now I've added assert text. Now I'm running it. See what is happening now. See here it says assert text failed because the assert text code and did not match. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, instead of assert text, say verify text. So now when I'm running it, see what is happening. Now tell me, what is the difference between assert and verify? Can you tell me what is the difference between verify and assert? What is happening here? So you saw a test case where we used assert. In another test case, we used assert. In another one, we used verify text. What is the difference? Can somebody tell me? Yes? Can someone tell me what is the difference? Tell me. Assert is also verifying. Verify is also verifying. But what is the difference? Okay, so you are not able to find the basic difference between assert and verify, even after showing it. Okay, now let me tell you what is the difference. The difference is, when we use assert, if the test case, if that step fails, the test case stops execution. It will not proceed further. But when you use verify, if that fails, it will simply say that failed and it will proceed with the test case. That means if there is a very critical step, okay, if this step fails, then I cannot proceed further. In that case, you will use assert. But okay, if the step fails also, I'm okay, I can continue my test case. In that case, you will use verify. So that means verify text is a soft assertion, meaning even if that particular step fails, it will still further continue. Okay, it will still further continue. But when I say assert, If it fails, the test step, the execution will fail. That is the difference between verify and text. Is that clear? Is that clear? Any questions? Okay, fine. Now, let us go to the next step in the Selenium execution. So what we will do is basically we will start recording a new test case. Right? Dash. So we are now recording the test case. Okay, so what I'll do is let me start from the beginning. Let me just get the, okay. So let me open Selenium. Let me start a new project. Okay, so let me give this start recording here. So here I'm going to say admin. Right now I say login. Okay. Now here I'm going to say items. Okay. Now item 1. Okay. Description. This is the description. Unit of measurement. I say kilos. Reorder level 1. Reorder quantity 1. Item category is utensils. Something like that. And I say add. Now one item is added. Okay, one item is added. Now what I'll do, I go back to the main page and I log out. So let me go to this test case and then let me export this. Export the test case as Python test case. TC underscore 002. Okay. So let me come back to this Python code. Let me add a new test case. Python 5. TC. Okay. Now let me open this code. So here, let me go to the browser. So here we have created a test case. Now let me just copy this and let me go ahead and run this. Right. So now I'm just trying to, let us go ahead and run this test case. Now I am going to run this. See what is going to happen now. I log in. I go to the items. Okay. Okay, sorry. I have to run the test case 3. Sorry, I have run the test case 1. Right click, run test case. Okay. Now I'm running the test case 3. It says passed. Okay. Now let us go ahead inside the application and see. Okay. See, let me go to the application. Admin. Okay. Okay. Now I go to the items. See, there are 6 items now. Okay, there are 6 items now. Now, when I run it, okay, if I run the code, how many items should come? Already there are 6 items available. If I run the code for adding an item, how many items should come? Can somebody tell that at least? I have 6 items. I'm adding an additional item. Totally now how many items should be there? Can somebody type that in the QA box? Okay, I think fundamental mathematics is missing here. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, maybe start reading that also. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, so here when I add an item, now there are 6 items. If I add one more item, it should be 7. 6 plus 1 is 7. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the test case now. Right click, run test case 3. See, it says passed. It is saying passed. But if you go to the code, I still have only six items. It should have come as 7. Okay, now let us try to understand what is happening. Okay, so here what I'm going to do is after the submission, I am going to say self dot driver dot time sleep. Okay, let's say I'm going to say 10 seconds. Let's say 15 seconds we will sleep. That means for 15 seconds nothing will happen, so that we will understand what is happening there. Okay, so run as see, it has not added because we are giving the same item ID. Okay, we are giving the same item ID. The item ID is not changed. That is why it is coming with the same item. Now, what we will do is here, instead of item 1 in the code, okay, let's give item 12. Okay, let's give item 12. And now let me run this. See what is happening. Now you can see 7 items found, because previously what was happening is item code is unique. Item code is unique. So if I add as item 1, if I add again as item 1, it will not add because that item 1 code is already there. So now what should I do? What should I do to make this code unique? So what we will have to do is we will have to make this such a way that it is unique, or you might have to say you might want to make this into a unique option. Okay, what can we do about this? Right? So every time I cannot go and come and change here. Every time I cannot come and change the item code here. So what I have to do is I have to make it into a slightly a unique way. Okay, so what can we do? One way is basically here I'm going to say import random. There are different ways of handling it. I am trying to do it with one particular option. Okay, so here item plus str string of random dot rand range of 1,000. So what will happen is every time it will randomly generate some number. It will randomly generate some number between 1 to 1,000, and then it will append that to this item, right? So let us see what is happening here now. See here, right click, run as. It has randomly added an item called 235. It has randomly added an item. You can see 235 it has put. So, but still, as you can think of, it can still be not unique, because what happens is it's a random number. Next time it can still generate 235. It still has that probability of generating the random ID of 235. But at least to some extent, the problem is solved. Now, can you tell me, is there a way where we can avoid this problem altogether? Is there a way where we can avoid this problem altogether? Yes? Can somebody think of a way to avoid this problem altogether? So one of the ways to avoid this problem altogether is by adding a unique number. Okay. Now, if you look at my code, this is not a unique number. It's just a random number. Okay. It is just a random number, but that is not a unique number. So how can I generate a random number? How can I generate a unique number? To some extent, it might not be very unique, but to some extent, you can generate a unique number. How can I do that? What is unique? How can I generate a unique number? Think. Somebody think of a way to generate a unique number. Can't you even think of a logic for a unique number? Can't you think of a logic for a unique number? Can't you think of a unique number? Think of a way to generate a unique number. I'm not going to tell that. How can we generate a unique date or unique thing from the okay, so I don't think any one of you know that also. Have you ever heard of something called as epoch timestamp? See, one thing that is unique is date and time. The combination of date and time is unique. It will not happen. Time that is gone, right? So the date and time combination is a unique time combination. So what we can do is, in our code, we can create a unique timestamp. How can we do that? Is we have a thing called import date time. Okay, this is one package that we are going to import. So from this, what are we going to do here is, here we are going to say epoch time. EPOC, epoch time. Okay, what is epoch time? What is epoch time? Date time dot date time of now dot Okay, so now if you if you write like this, right? Now what we will do is we will first separately try this. Okay. So what we will do, we will create a new test case, new simple file, a Python file for our understanding. Okay. Learn. So here we'll have to import this. Import date time. So now print epoch time. So now if you run this, so you are getting one number, very large number, right? But this is having some decimal points. This is having some decimal points, right? Now this number is unique. Why is this number unique? This number is basically a combination of date and time. It's just not date and time. It is actually the number of seconds that have passed by since the inception of Linux system. So in Linux, the clock starts at first 30th January or 1st January, something 1970. Okay, from there they count each epoch as one time, 1 second. Okay, so what we can do is we can say in what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to convert this into a an integer. How do you convert a float to integer? So it is, sorry, I think I made a mistake here. Sorry. Okay. Is small int. Okay. So now when we are running this, run. So you are going to get a unique. So this is going to be a unique number. So what we are going to do is we are going to take this particular value here and let us go to this test case and let us replace this command here. Okay, and what are we going to do here is instead of this, we are going to say epoch time. Now you see what, now let me put a sleep here. Time dot sleep, let's say 5 seconds. Okay, so now let us run this. See, you can see that a unique code number is automatically generated. Okay, there are some other reasons why it failed. Okay, I think the uh, the code number cannot be that big. Okay, we have given a very big code number. So I think what I'm going to do is I. Okay, instead of putting item, I'm just putting I. Let us run this. I don't know what is the total number of characters that it will accept, but I'm thinking it will. Oh, okay. Now the application looks like the application crashed. The application is still working. Admin. Looks like the application has crashed. Okay, anyways, so what we did was we saw how to so basically in today's session we saw like how do we execute a test case where we can add an assertion. We saw the difference between assertion and verification, and we also saw how do we enter a unique number. So wherever it is required, there are cases where you might have to pass in some unique values. So how to pass that unique values by using timestamp. Okay, so these are the three things that we have seen in today's class. Any questions? Karthik, you can stop recording.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Any questions?